Come, all you moonshiners, if you want to hear.
Welcome back to Barley and Hops. I'm George, the channel that dares to unlock the mysteries of home distilling. Yes, we'll share everything with you. So this channel really is for beginners, novices, and experts. Trust me, none of us know everything. Sometimes we'll bring back a point or a principle that you've either long forgotten or just kind of overlooked. We're back. Yes, we had a 4-day trip out to Branson, Missouri. Had a wonderful time. Oh, I highly recommend it for anybody who wants to just go out there and hang out in the mountains, drink a little bit of moonshine, and just see the sights. Now, we were gone, and I had a lot of time to think, and I was waiting to get back to this, and because we started this. Remember, we ground the corn, and we ground our corn down to like a quarter pea, half pea size. And remember what the reason for that was? I know you do. It was because we wanted to be able to get it out of here when we're finished with it. Now, what I'm going to describe today, this mashing process, because we're going to do what's called gelatinize. Ha! There's a good word for you, gelatin. We're going to soften, okay? Once we've got this corn ground to the proper size that fits my particular process, you'll grind it to fit your process. You want to soften it so that all those starches are available so that we can do what? Yeah. So we can convert those starches to fermentable sugars and lo and behold, ferment and then distill. Yeah. We got a few things to do in preparation for that. So this is a real easy. For the life of me, I don't understand how people make it so difficult. There are probably umpteen. Sometimes when I was growing up, we called it 40-11. There's 40-11 of those. That means there's more than you can shake a stick at. There's a bunch of different ways to do this process, but they all have the same and or similar results in the far end. We're looking for the best percentage of conversion that we can get at this stage, at this level. That's really all we're trying to do. As long as we don't violate, remember we talked about that three-legged stool again. There we go, yeah. Process. Just don't violate the process, and your process can be done a couple of different ways. Now, also, we mentioned in that equipment. Remember, you got to have quality equipment. Now, I'm not talking about you don't have to have the brand new still that's on the market and it's all shiny. As long as your equipment is comparable to what you're wanting it to do. You follow me? I mean, so we've got homemade stills, we've got commercial stills that were purchased. All those, that is all good equipment. It's just as long as the equipment is comparable to what you want it to do, is what we would consider good equipment. All right, I've already put my water in here. This is that old 30 liter Chinese still we had years ago. I've found another purpose for it. Oh, by the way, see, this is good equipment, comparable to what I want it to do, which is to gelatinize and mash my corn. Yeah. So I filled it with water, and I've got probably about 4.5 or 5 gallons in here, and I use my handy pH meter because I'm trying to get that pH to what? No, I didn't hear. Yeah, 5.2. Somewhere in that general area. Yeah. My sweet spot, 4.8, 5.4, somewhere in there. It's because it's not an exacting science at that point. But, and I got to underline that, but you want it to be below neutral, which is what? 7. 7 is neutral. 14, which is the higher end of the scale, is base or alkaline. And 0 or 1 is acidic. So we want it down at like 5.2. And what that does is it gives us an environment where those starches can be released. And oh, by the way, it's the perfect environment for yeast fermentation when we get to that stage. And remember, we only have to do this once. So I've got that done. Great, I can put this away. I get asked a lot of times about literature, books and things. I've always recommended, and I highly recommend this. Look, I'm not getting paid by anybody to do these. I do these just out of the love of the hobby. Moonshine by Matthew B. Riley. $15.99 on Amazon. Guys, if you don't have one, You don't absolutely have to have it. It's a wonderful read, plus it covers a litany of things about the moonshine process. It'll dispel some rumors, some myths. It'll actually open your eyes to a lot of different things, and it describes in great detail, sometimes very, very simplistic, about how to make moonshine. So that's available to you. Just grab one. We've got the difference between a collection vessel, a fermenter, and a mash tun. You know, you've heard that term, mash tun. A mash tun is nothing more than a device that you can heat water in and or just add heated water to it, but it's separated. You know, you put a standoff in the center of it so that your grain bed lies up here and your water is down here. You know, the water's here, and then when you drain it, it just drains through, and then you can sparge, rinse. Yeah, you can rinse your grains and everything will run through. I took this and I built one of these. I just got some corrugated stainless steel, and I made myself a mash tun base. And there's my standoff from the bottom of my kettle. And the reason I have that standoff is that when I use the heating element in here to heat this water, once I add my grain, I'm not scorching anything. I'm just heating the water. You get the process. So I'm going to add this to it, and then I'll come back and then we'll go do the rest of it. That was a tight fit. Yeah, I cut that really precise. So I've got that standoff about right here, and I'm going to turn this on. I'm just going to turn it up all the way. You know, this dial on here is not as accurate as you'd expect it to be, so I'll use an external, my favorite external thermometer, and we'll let that start to heat up. As it starts to heat up, you know, I've used my Star San, of course. I spray everything, sprayed that, and that's in order to try to sanitize. You know, I like to work in a sanitary environment, you know, as best I can. I use spray with Star San, shake it, and then you can use it. So I'm just going to leave that set there. What we're going to do now is we're going to add our corn. And what I want to do is I want to bring this up to, look, you can boil the corn for about 20, 30 minutes. You can leave it like at 190 degrees for 30, 45 minutes or so. You'll know when it's gelatinized. Trust me, you'll be able to reach in there with a paddle and pull it. It'd be like a porridge in a way. But you want to be able to gelatinize. So give it a little bit more time than necessary if you've got it available to you. You're not in a rush. Now, is there another way to do this? Yes, we could bring our strike water up to, you know, right above the upper limit for the amylase to start to activate, which is 162 degrees. Yeah, I think it's 71 Celsius. There I go again. Well, beside the point. You could bring your strike water up to that level, add your grain, add your barley, and just let that set. You know, mix it, stir it every once in a while, and let that set. And use time to your advantage to allow that to gelatinize and start to convert. Or you can use the longer method. I guess this would be a long, not as well. It's a separate step, separate method. I'm just going to do the corn first, gelatinize it and get it where I want it, and then I'm going to add my barley, because most of your starch conversion to fermentable sugars, surprise, happens in about the first 30 minutes. But any literature you read or anyone you listen to that will describe this will tell you to leave it sitting there for about 90 minutes, 60 to 90 minutes. And all that is just an insurance policy, just to allow you to make sure that you've converted all your available starches to fermentable sugars. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to add my corn, and all I've got to do is add it and then stir it, and then we're going to put the lid on here and let this thing heat up to where I want it. About 190. I've got plenty of water in here, and the reason why I have plenty of water is because at some point I'm going to add, once it cools down, I'm going to add my barley, and barley is there to provide the alpha amylase to convert those starches to fermentable sugars. That's one reason why I've got plenty of water. The second reason I have plenty of water in here is because once I start to drain, those grains are going to retain a good amount of that moisture, of that volume, and I'll pour some clear water through that to sparge those, rinse those, and I'm rinsing those fermentable sugars out through those grains, but in the end I'm still going to have a good volume of that water is going to be resident in those grains. So I'm going to lose some, unless, of course, yeah, you can take them out, press them. You can do all of that, okay? So there's many of options to you, but again, process is important. And right now I'm at 112, and it'll take, this is a 220 volt system, so this will take probably 15 minutes or so to get to 190 degrees. Even with all of that in there, it's pretty robust. One of these days we're going to do another one. We did a video on how to wire 220 volts versus 110 volts, or depending on who you are, 115 volts versus 230 volts, or however you describe it. There's a lot of nuances to that, but it's relatively simple. And if you're kind of a handy person around the house, you can wire your own through your own circuit box. It's not that difficult. We'll do a video on that later on. But we're here and we're going to hang out. Now, what is another way we could have accomplished all of this, what I'm doing right now? Yeah, I could just bring this up, gelatinize it, allow it to cool, okay, allow it to cool down between, and the sweet spot, 142 to 162 Fahrenheit. That's when your alpha amylase is active. Yeah, and then I could just add some alpha amylase. Yeah, add some alpha amylase and allow that to happen on its own. And what my intent is to achieve a desired gravity points per pound per gallon. We'll get to that. Also, we've got some glucoamylase. Glucoamylase is, think of it, you got alpha, beta. Glucoamylase is that sort of finishing product, okay? If you don't have glucoamylase, is it going to be a bust? No, you're going to be okay. You see, your alpha amylase cuts off those chains, those sugars as they convert, they cut them off into large swaths. And your glucoamylase will do that on the very ends and cut off the small ends, which gives you a little bit more fermentable sugars. It just breaks off those glucose molecules. What's the primary difference? If you're working out the math and you're looking for a percentage, your percentage differences for efficiency, it's going to be about 2 or 3%. It's not a whole lot to get worried about, but if you're anal and you're looking for those, use a little bit of glucoamylase. Now, you can use that 2 different ways. Look at that. It's another option. You can do that while it's in here, or at 149 degrees is what the recommendation is anything 149 degrees or lower for glucoamylase. Or you can do it in the fermenter. You can just add like a 1/3 teaspoon per 5 gallons into your fermenter and do that as your yeast are chucking away at your fermentable sugars and making that ethanol. Whoa. You know, we have covered a lot of information up to this point. I hope you found it useful, beneficial. When we come back, we are going to allow this to cool down. And once it cools down to right above 162, because once I add grains are going to drop the temperature a couple of degrees. Then we're going to add our malted barley and allow that to convert those fermenters, those starches. Until then, happy distilling.